and then I'll go into massive action for 30 to 60 days. I tend to coast for the last 30 days, and then I go, okay, now it's time to regroup and let's see how we can, add energy to whatever we're doing right now. Like, why not do this? Like for me, I've referred to myself as my own personal guinea pig. Anytime there's I can't do this, instead rephrase it as, how might I do this? What ultimately, puts food on your table, creates an opportunity, changes your life. So the idea of, doing what you fear most so you control the fear, the struggle is the game. Most of the challenges they have are of a design that somebody else gave them and that they agreed to, and that if they rewrote the rules of the game that they're playing, they could actually play a different game and actually get different results.
Glenn Sanford, welcome to the show. Founder of eXp Realty and CEO of Success Magazine and everything that entails. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, let me kick things off with my favorite question, which is, what is your motto or mantra for life and how do you apply it?
Well, one of them is the universe conspires in my favor. So that's one of my mantras that I use quite often. Probably the other, and I just tend to think that, as I focus on ideas, things will show up that will be beneficial to those ideas,
Mhm.
and so I just sort of expect that, things are going to happen that are going to be positive. I don't know what they're going to be, but I know that the universe is going to conspire in my favor and help me on that journey in some capacity. So that's been kind of one of my mantras. My other one is probably the Zig Ziglar quote: "Is you can have anything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want." So those are probably
Yes.
my
Wow.
two main mantras.
That's brilliant. That's a great combination, actually, because that one is propelling you forward into action and taking action. The other seems to be about giving, and obviously that in itself is a very good expression because what you put out into the world, you tend to get back. So I can see, and so obviously you've had immense success with EXP and everything that entails. I'm really keen to understand now that you've moved into the world of success and that business. What are the lessons and the wins that you're taking from eXp Realty, and you're going to be using those for success to propel it to the next level?
Yeah, probably the big one, EXP for me was to solve some challenges that I had for scaling my personal business. And what I mean by that is that I recognized there were certain things that in the residential real estate industry didn't allow me to hit my goals. And once I figured out that everybody had those same challenges, that we could solve for that and actually do something even bigger. So a lot of people, they look at their struggle as being the thing that they're stuck in,
Mhm.
and and they just think that that's the backdrop, when they can sort of look at take a bigger picture, sort of go to a higher level and go, well, if I'm struggling with this, then aren't more people struggling with this, and why don't we solve that bigger challenge for everybody, as opposed to just trying to sort of struggle here myself. So when I think about success, I think about the idea that, that this is really about how to um, you know uh, to help people just think in a different way about, how do they level up. I mean, obviously we've got a ton of history in the Success brand, from the very beginning, and everybody from Napoleon Hill to Og Mandino to, and so many people have been associated with the brand over the years, and they've all been around how do you think and how do you sort of level up. But too many people get stuck in the day to day that they never realize that most of the challenges they have are of a design that somebody else gave them, and that they agreed to, and that if they rewrote the rules of the game that they're playing, they could actually play a different game and actually get different results. So I think that's what we did in EXP, and I think that's what we'd love to be able to do in Success, is just help people recognize that when they're struggling, they actually agreed to the struggle. Like,
Right.
until they play a different game, the struggle is the game.
Yes. Yes. That is the game that they need. Yes, that's the game that they need to play and they need to solve. And
Yeah.
you're gonna be innovating and moving everyone forward together around that mission?
Yeah, that's really the idea. I mean, we got this success achievers community, which you can kind of go to at achievers.success.com. But the idea is if we can get enough people, and I think it's called Metcalfe's law, the power of a network is the square of its nodes. And if you can get enough really, creative achiever thinkers that actually think about the fact that the challenges that they have don't need to be challenges and can up level, they can create whole new opportunities. They can build new relationships. They can find new business partners. They can, solve with more of a larger brain trust the things that they're going through. I mean, in my mind, that's the magic of kind of creating a network effect that then, allows you to mastermind in different ways than if you're on your own, sitting at home, not plugging in somewhere. So plugging in will automatically allow you to, have the 5 people you associate with the most
Mhm.
propel you. And if you're in there, you're going to be propelled in a way that initially is going to be uncomfortable, because a lot of the stuff, if you've not done it before, it seems bizarre and it's uncomfortable. And then, but eventually, if you're around it enough, eventually you go, maybe this isn't that weird. Maybe
Yeah.
this actually does work. And then all of a sudden they start to get this different results, because ultimately it starts with attitude, and how your attitude, and then you're increasing your aptitude around whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, you kind of have to have both, but attitude is certainly a driver. So mindset, attitude, and then ultimately working on your craft so you can truly be an expert, passionate about whatever you do. You put those 3 things together, you're pretty much unstoppable.
I love that. Yeah, and I love the idea of being unstoppable as well. So what you've just described there is obviously for some people that's taking them out of their comfort zone. How do you approach courage in your daily life, and where do you find courage? Like,
Yeah, well, one another phrase that I've really adopted over the years, is do what you fear most, and you control the fear. And fear, I remember Dr. Dennis Waitley talking about it years ago, which fear is false education appearing real. And so if you can, do what you fear most, and most of the stuff that we're afraid of will not kill us. We will not die making another sales call. Like, nobody's going to murder us during a sales call. And yet so many people don't make that sales call because of fear. Well, what's the fear? Well, I might be rejected. They might say no, they might do that, then whatever that is. But once you sort of get over it and you say, okay, well, I'm not going to die. And what's the worst that can happen? Then you embrace it. And then you go and do the sales call. And guess what? You got a chance of getting a yes. And all of a sudden you've already embraced what the worst case scenario is. And now you've got the opportunity to actually get, what ultimately, puts food on your table, creates an opportunity, changes your life. So the idea of, doing what you fear most so you control the fear, is one of those things. So when we think about courage, it's really embrace the worst case scenario as if it could happen.
Mhm.
Understand that you won't die, and then
Mhm.
ultimately do it anyway. So that's sort of the way that I've always approached it. Is like, and by the way, I mean, I'm human like everybody else. I mean, I'll procrastinate and I'll put off some of those, difficult conversations, those sales calls, or those things, and whatever. But eventually I go, the dream, what my goals are way bigger than this thing that's holding me back. So why the hell am I letting this thing hold me back from taking a chance on this other thing?
And what kind of, I guess, the follow-on to that would be then, what kind of impact do you think that the people around you have on helping you level up and go through that? Like, if you're in a community, what kind of impact can that have on accelerating that change path, but also you listening to that inner courage and kind of dealing with the fact that yes, you might not die from doing this, but you still don't want to do it, or potentially forcing yourself. Like, how big an impact can that community have?
Oh, huge. I mean, when you see other achievers achieving, eventually, it's more uncomfortable not achieving. Like, that becomes the discomfort, because you're so tired. I mean, I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of people, if they're not around achievers, that they see somebody start to achieving, they're so used to non-achievers, they tell the achiever, you can't do it, you're going to fail, nobody's ever done it. But once you start to get around achievers, it's like, go for it, you can do it, you can make a difference. And so achievers, ultimately being around other achievers just allows you to achieve faster, better, and more effectively. And so that's why I think, when we bought the Success brand, it was the tagline is what achievers read. And now that we're bringing achievers together, the whole idea is really that they're going to just be able to, not that they weren't able to before, but they'll have more permission. Our mirror neurons. So when we see somebody succeed, we have actually, when we see them, even if we read about it, which obviously creates mental images, we hear about it, again, sort of that mental imaging, and we see people succeed. I think it's one of the reasons why social media is so impactful in some respects, because we like to see people succeeding, even if it's like going on a vacation or whatever, even though we know at some level that's probably not their real life, but it helps us level up. And so being around that positive energy allows us to level up and to have those peak experiences. And the more peak experiences that we have, the more our life is well lived. And so we're always pursuing, like, how can I have a bigger impact? What are the peak experiences I can be a part of? What are the peak experiences I can bring to other people? And then all of that then allows us all to level up together. So the density, we could call it achiever density. That might be a new term we just might have coined right here.
That's
We're going to talk about the achiever density at Success, is going to help people succeed even further.
and that in itself, like proximity, being someone that, even a mentor for someone, or being around other people, watching what they do, learning from them, that in itself is a great way to give. And actually, what you said about embracing fear, you can end up being the role model for someone else. What would you say for an entrepreneur who's in a bit of a hard place now due to COVID, but they're also they've got that ambition, they've got that fire, they're not necessarily struggling with fear, they just don't know where to go next. And yes, they're looking on Instagram and they're surrounding themselves, and they're sort of getting this feeling that they can be doing more. What would you say to someone that knows that they can deliver more, but unfortunately, due to whatever circumstances, they're feeling like they're not putting it out into the world?
Right. So one is, the first part, is how much of that is self-imposed. So, a lot of times we do buy into the challenge that I can't do this because of this other thing. And so, I can't be successful because of COVID right now. Well, maybe there's certain things you can't do, like, and I'll just ask you, Tim, just as an aside, how many ways are there to do anything?
Millions, hundreds, loads. Yeah.
Infinite, right? You could literally find an infinite number of ways to do anything. So if I take 100 things that you can't do, and I say, okay, Tim, you can't do these 100 things, and you might get fixated on those 100 things, but in reality, how many ways are left to do that same thing?
It's
still infinite minus any finite number is still infinite.
Yeah.
So meaning that, when somebody says, hey, I can't do this because of COVID, and they, what ends up happening is they get laser focused on the I can't do anything rather than all the other things that they can do. So, the I can't do this thing because of COVID, is to some extent a business constraint. Some of it's self-imposed, some of it societal imposed, some of it governmental imposed, but you need to define what are your business constraints. Well, I can't go and be in groups of 1,000 people or more. I can't be in groups of 50. Okay, well, that's a business constraint. There's still an infinite number of ways to do, one-on-one, have conversations with people, like we're doing today. There's, so the ability to come up with new and innovative ideas. Now, Instagram probably isn't going to take you deep enough into a subject so that you can truly execute against it. You're going to have to do some deep dives. You're going to have to buy some books, listen to audios, get educated. That's why I talked about aptitude and becoming an expert of your craft. I mean, so COVID definitely interrupted virtually everybody on the planet. So everybody got interrupted, everybody got, some sort of pause, but that doesn't take away the fact that you can actually still educate, take courses, learn how to program, software, develop apps to, there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. You just need to figure out what it is. And so it's really just anytime you get stopped, you can get paused, but if you allow yourself to get stopped entirely, that's your fault because you actually chose not to figure out how to solve that challenge that you're in. So I think that's the key is you can always solve the challenge as long as you're above ground, you're not,
Yeah.
buried. There's going to be a way to solve whatever challenge that's coming at you.
So it's almost taking this mindset of possibility to everything that you're facing, whether it's a challenge or a situation, and actually challenging yourself. Is this actually a challenge? No, because if you've got that positive mindset, if you've got that possibility mindset, and then also taking self responsibility to go, right, well, I'm not going to wait for my employer to give me training. I'm going to go out and get self-trained. I'm going to go out and find the course. I'm going to go out and find the podcast. I'm going to go out and find the people that I need to be around to get my mastermind group together. So it's this kind of balance of both responsibility and a mindset of it can happen and I just need to find the way through.
Right. And, anytime there's I can't do this, instead rephrase it as how might I do this? And
Oh
then
yeah.
solve for that. So change the I can't to how might I, and then figure out, why is it that you should do this now? Why is it that you are worthy of this now? List all those things. I mean, I think I forget the gentleman's name that came up with the term affirmations. I mean, one's affirmations, I'm worthy, I'm great, I'm whatever. But then there's the affirmations which is all the, why am I the right person to do this? And then you start to develop all the reasons and you start to write it down. I mean, we all can come up with reasons why we could be good at pretty much anything if we chose to, because I'm a good studier, I'm a good student, I'm great at finding mentors, I'm great at doing this. If you're not good at whatever it is, you can be good at finding people who are good at it.
Mhm.
And that's who you are. Like you are that person if you choose to be. Like it's all like life's a smorgasbord. It's if you choose to be at this moment in time a good student, everybody can be a good student. Everybody can at this time I can go and find a great mentor. And so for a moment in time, now if our our lazy self starts to kick in, we're gonna quit doing that. But for brief moments in time, we can actually do pretty much anything we put our minds to. And then as we build that muscle memory, we just do it more and more often until eventually we're getting great results from doing this thing. And so whether it's self-discipline, whether it be getting around the right people, which is a phenomenal way of creating a reinforcement process. So we don't forget who we are on this planet to be. We get around achievers and we keep on getting reminded that we're actually designed to achieve.
That's brilliant. That is gold right there. So you think it's more of like also an identity shift. It's almost like if you start to tell yourself that you can be the student, you go out and learn, then that's something that you value. You then want to go out and do it more. And then because of that, you start to see the success that it brings to your life. And then you level up and you go again and again. Are you someone who's big into books? Are there things that you've enjoyed recently in terms of reading?
Yeah. One of the books I just recently read was the No Rules Rules book by Reed Hastings and Aaron Meyer. So that's the sort of book of the rules for Netflix, how Netflix runs. Just in the process right now of reading Grant Cardone's book, Sell or Be Sold. So I'm just in the middle of that book. And we just got into a relationship with Grant Cardone on some stuff that we're doing. So excited about that. I've read tons of books over the years, but those are a couple of the most recent ones. Like anything. let's see, Influence of Psychology of Persuasion, in my opinion, was one of the, one of the more amazing books that I read years ago, I think 2007, 2008, talking about, how we're influenced a lot of times without our knowledge and without our permission, by others. And once you sort of understand that that all this stuff that's around us is to some extent marketing, that you could just sort of rewrite a little bit of your own marketing, because you realize that, this, all this stuff that's out there, how people dress and what their titles are and what's on TV, and even the magazines that we see when we're in the checkout stand at the grocery store, even if we don't pick them up, all this stuff influences us and shapes our opinions. And so, once you sort of understand how much this stuff can sort of impact our subconscious, it does give you an opportunity to redesign what you expose yourself to.
I think this, yeah, this is definitely a theme that I'm sensing and that it's coming out. It's about really questioning and understanding how much the world has taught you, or almost you've just accepted that things have to either be a certain way, or that you are a certain way, or that the way you behave to certain situations is a certain way. And what I'm hearing you say is that, like, there's so much growth out there. If you start to just question and pull at those threads, you can start unraveling them, and then you can rewrite the blueprint, and you can then become who you want to be, because it's already all there for you. And it's just about kind of not rewriting your whole identity, but just tweaking some of those parts to be able to become better.
Yeah, I think that, everything is, everything's figure outable. I think that's a title of a book as well. If you just decide this is what I'm going to figure out, and then there's certain tools that in my opinion, like doing mind maps. Like, I'm a big mind map guy, so
Right.
so I love doing mind maps, and so every project, everything that I work on, I generally you put on a mind map first, because I want to break out all the component parts and all this sort of independent drivers around decision making around whatever that is. So it could be health and fitness, it could be business, it could be relationships, it could be whatever. And by sort of recognizing that there's certain constraints that are inside of your current programming, so we call that current state, and then you do a mind map around, to some extent, your future state. What ideally should this thing look like? Then you can quickly see the disconnects and the things that you need to replace between your current state and your future state, because you've got these two maps. One's reality today, or don't even do that one. Just do the one that is the future state that you want something to be in, whether it be, again, could be any subject. And all of a sudden it starts to drive what goes on your calendar. It drives what who you go and spend time with. It drives what you focus on, because you notice that there are things that are not in alignment, and they're internal tensions that you now have around how your life or thing or business or whatever doesn't match up with your mind map. And so when it doesn't match up, physically we feel it. We have a term called tensions, or we feel it in our gut or whatever. And as long as those tensions then pull us forward to that future state, because we hate, I think it's cognitive dissonance, when our current life doesn't match what we have in our mind's eye, which is what the mind map sort of represents. Then that cognitive dissonance, our brain says, hey, I don't like this. This is uncomfortable. You're telling me one thing, but you're doing another. So either get rid of that future idea, that future state, or let's change our present state to look like our future state. So, one way or the other, one of those is going to win. And somehow we have to figure out tools and systems that allow us to pull ourselves toward that future state.
So that all starts. So when you sit down with a new project or a new life change or a new thing that you're going to take on, you will start with a brainstorm or mind map, and you'll delve into it that way. And then you'll look at where you ideally want to be. And then you can start to, I guess you start to see how far apart those two ideal worlds are, how much of a change has got to happen, what areas have got to change. That's fantastic. So if I was to ask you, what is, or what has been so far, the biggest single driver of your success, what would you say?
Um, I think the question is probably just a why not question. Like, why
Mm.
not do this? Like for me, um, I've referred to myself as my own personal guinea pig. Like meaning that, if I'm going to, so I'm a bit of a experimenter, entrepreneur for sure. So I like to see what happens if I do something, if I push on this, push on, do that, and then so so I'll just ask the question, why not do this?
Mm.
And I usually can't come up with good ideas why I shouldn't try to be more successful. I mean, think about why not be more successful, or why not try to launch this new business? And I don't have enough time, don't have money, whatever those things are. Eventually, you sort of those are really not real things. It's like, well, okay, let's that that's fine, but why not? Why not? Why not? And
Yeah.
finally, you get to sort of the essence of, the fact that there's only, there's a few things you can do to take you in that direction. And then you go to that next bend in the river, and then you do another assessment, and then you do go to the next bend in the river, and you do another assessment. So for me, it's always the why not, and then just take, regular assessments, or retrospectives, or planning around that. So I typically do that quarterly, but every quarter I'll just kind of look at, where things are at, are things going the right direction? Do I need to make some changes? And then I'll go into massive action for 30 to 60 days. I tend to coast for the last 30 days. And then I go, okay, now it's time to regroup, and let's see how we can, add energy to whatever we're doing right now. And I've been doing those quarterly cycles probably since I was in my mid 30s for sure.
So go hard for the first 30 to 60, and then sort of get the rewards, and you've got the momentum for the last 30 into the last 90, and then ramp up momentum again, 30, 60, 90, then recoup. That's
Yep.
that's awesome. So I guess from there, I also did a bit of reading around the fact that you were starting a lot of internet companies back in the 2000s. Like, what did that teach you? I mean, around actually starting, you've started a number of different businesses. What was that like?
Yeah, so I started a number of businesses prior to getting into real estate when I was 35. And what it did, one of the cool things about web being able to design a web page, which I think it's fairly easy to do, and I think most people should learn the basics of doing it, because it will really empower you, because you can at least launch something and put something up so somebody can look at something. So I think that's just that basic marketing tool set. So, but I did that early on. I mean, probably within 6 months of the NCSA Mosaic showing up and the ability to surf the web back in '95 or something like that. I was developing web pages when I saw how easy it was to develop web pages back then, and like, heck, people get paid to do this. This is pretty easy. So that's how I got into that, and then I launched a few different companies around e-commerce, and most of the companies didn't do really good. I had one company who was making 15,000 a month, or whatever. But what they taught me a lot of business principles around compensation, and partners, and a bunch of stuff. So by the time I got to my mid 30s or so, I had learned some enough things that worked and didn't work, that I was able to really sort of create a little bit more of my own destiny.
Mm.
And then by the time I got to 42, which is when we launched eXp Realty, I think it was 42, 43. I finally really had the body of knowledge, the content, so I could literally come up with a new business model and launch it. So there was definitely a lot of stuff there that was really powerful.
Brilliant. And yeah, so I guess to expand upon that, then you've you've essentially done so many amazing things since 42, and obviously that has had a wonderful impact on the world. Have you always considered yourself to be an early adopter, and have you been throwing yourselves into kind of new areas? Because when we started this, obviously this interview and this chat, it was all around the fact that you were noticing people have problems, and why not go and fix it? Why not go and solve those problems? Has that been a theme or a common kind of trait that you would say that people should adopt?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of wired this way since I was pretty young. So I really have never felt that there's nothing that I couldn't solve if I put enough you behind it. Now when I graduated high school, I graduated with a 192. So I graduated, I didn't even wasn't even a C student. So I was but then I ended up getting working with somebody when I was 21 who was just a huge mentor of mine. Hated him, but he was a mentor because he was literally this sort of slave driver, crack the whip kind of guy from New York City, and I'd actually became a stockbroker, and I was this guy's roommate for about 6 months, and so I ended up changing my trajectory in terms of my dedication to actually getting things done. So my focus and my intensity increased substantially. But I was always even an entrepreneur even before I was 21. So I started the fast food delivery service. I had a software company when I was 15 years old. So I was always an entrepreneur, but I didn't have the work ethic yet. And so, as you have mentors, I mean, seek out, I would say one thing is definitely seek out mentors that scare the crap out of you. Like, especially if you're young, like find somebody who's going to actually, really put you through your paces and will hold you accountable, because once you've learned how to hold yourself accountable, life gets easier, because then you can put a plan in place, and you've got the grit and the staying power to actually get things accomplished in a fairly rapid fashion. So that comes from being around people who believe in your potential, in some cases more than you believe in your own, and do that as young as you possibly can. But whatever age you're at, if you're still not there, still find somebody that will kick your ass if you're not accomplishing stuff.
That's true, and that teaches you to take it on yourself. So then you kick your own ass, like
Right.
you end
Yep.
up being the best version of yourself. So what is your vision for success, and I guess what is your mission for your life?
Yes. So relative to success, success.com and that, we want to really expose this to a much larger audience. I think that's what we, and it's not as easy as it sounds. I mean, we've got a great domain name, success.com. We've got great content. We've got 125-year-old brand with Success Magazine. So we've got a lot of really great assets, but it's still a business. We still have to go out and expose it to people. We have to, it has to cash flow, meaning that we've got to make enough or more than it costs for us to actually deliver this content in order to expand the audience. But for me, I want to, just continue to build this thing out so that we can impact, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of lives, in just up leveling. And think about all the impact that we can have, across the planet if we can help people up level. I mean, if people don't feel restricted in their ability to contribute, then how much better could life be? And could the world be? There's a lot of people that don't believe that they can make an impact, and some of it is imposed by bad employers, people who really probably shouldn't be employers, and they really are all about indentured servitude, as opposed to creating opportunities for people to truly succeed and to truly, have opportunities in front of them, other than always having to work for the man, whatever that, that means. So for me, I want to just help people understand that there's more opportunities out there, that to believe in themselves, to recognize that, in most cases, they have everything that they need between their two ears to be successful. Obviously, they physically have to do stuff. It's not just think about it, but you've got a body. So there's your aptitude that you have to sort of bring to the table. But if you do that, everybody. And I was thinking about this the other day. If in 10 years, I think anybody can be successful. I think a lot of people want to be successful like tomorrow. I launched how many people have launched an Instagram and say, I'm going to be an influencer. And then they're lucky if they get 100 people that like sort of follow them. And they do that in like a week. And then they're like, oh, I'm going to fail at this. And so they quit, before they even get started. But if they truly can dedicate themselves to being successful in a given field or profession or whatever, and they truly become a master of their craft over 10 years, I think everybody can be successful if they think big enough, if they think about coming from contribution, thinking about adding value to others, and just sharing what they know while becoming a true expert at their craft.
That's massive, isn't it? That's absolutely huge, because you've just spun the focus round on, again, it's not so much about what I can get, it's what I can give, how I can put out into the world, give my gift to the world, and then that expands, and then also making that contribution. I say, I know you're an incredibly busy person, so I thank you so much for coming on the show. My final question, I read that eXp 50 hours of live training each week is incredible. Is this something that's going to be produced with success.com? Is this something that's going to be coming in there? And I guess, where would you expect to see success in 2030, like the year 2030? And how do you get there whilst retaining this legacy and also growing this user base and all of this? I know that's like a pretty big question, but
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. So, well, we have brought in a number of really successful people to join our editorial boards and do different things. Hopefully, we can figure out ways to get you more involved with the Success brand. We've just launched the Success Achievers community. We're about to launch what we call the Achievers All Access community inside of our Success Achievers community, and that's going to be our first paid subscription in our new version of Success. And it's only be $50 a month, but it's going to include a magazine subscription, but it's going to include tons of access to people who are dedicated to helping you succeed. And meaning that they're not there to sell their products or their wares, even though some of them may have products and services they sell outside of that. But it will really be about how do we lean in to help everybody in that network succeed at the highest level. And our goal is to get 30, 40, 50,000 people part of that community and build the masterminds and all of the stuff that goes along with that. And so for us, it's just, how do we create a monetization strategy where we can lean in and help as many people as we possibly can? And what should that be? And for me, I want to lean in there. I want to be able to mastermind with people. I want to eventually get together with people in person and do a bunch of stuff and just share what I've done so far personally, and then expose people to lots of people who've been successful and give them access to or a seat at the table with people who've already made it, so that they can see it, that they themselves can actually do the same thing.
Amazing. Glenn, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute privilege and an honor, as I said at the beginning, to have you on, to have you speak to the audience, and you've given so much value. It's been incredible.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thanks a bunch. Really appreciate being on the podcast here today, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, speak soon.